Hi, I'm Preston, and I've been coming to Edges since I was a freshman in college about 5 years ago. One reason I keep coming back to Edges every week is because of the emotional connection that I find to God through music. I've loved music since I was very young. I can remember sitting in the car with my mom singing songs on the radio, and still remember the album that I listened to on repeat when my family first moved into the house we live in now. That's Five for Fighting's The Battle for Everything, in case anybody's wondering. I remember the first song that I sang in harmony with my now fiancé, that's Chasing Cars by Snow Patrol, and even the first song that I learned the rap lyrics to, that's Beautiful by Akon. You might have a similar personal experience. Music marks large parts and large events in my own personal life. From remembering certain times to being the thing that I spent a large majority of my free time on in high school and college. Because of this, I'm so excited that I get to join you together today, preaching during our Good Song series. Over the last few weeks, we've been moving our way through a sermon series entitled Good Songs. We've been talking about the songs that we sing at Edges and the meaning behind them, the why behind the what. Our first week, we dove into a specific song and a specific line that may have been unclear. The following week, we explored the story behind the song. Last week, we gathered together to engage in the actual act of singing, embracing, enjoying, and letting the music envelop every fiber of our being. This week, we're discussing one of my favorite songs that we sing at Edges, Simple Gospel. We'll be taking a more whole song approach, looking at the song's full arc from beginning to end, and exploring what it might teach us about knowing God more. So the song starts off with a few lines that read, "I want to know you, Lord, like I know a friend. I want to know you, Lord." And then followed by, "So I'm laying down all my religion. I'm laying down, I want to know you, Lord." Take a few seconds and think to yourself about those phrases. What comes to mind? For me, one big question that I keep coming back to is, what is meant by the phrase, laying down all my religion? I wonder if we sing these words because it's what you do in church, you sing along. But how many times have you or I stopped and thought about the fact that you're singing, "I'm laying down all my religion, I want to know you, Lord"? It seems kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it? Perhaps even a little, dare I say it, sacrilegious? To be perfectly honest, maybe you've never stopped and thought about the specific lyrics that we're singing, and that's okay. You may hear a song and think to yourself, am I even allowed to disagree with the songs that we sing in church? Is it okay to think critically about the lyrical content of the songs that we sing? Or you may, like me, hear a song for its melodic content, the tune, and not care too much about the lyrics because you're too lost in the music. The beauty of what we get to do together today is to join in thinking about what these words, these potential truths, might actually mean. First of all, I want us to think about this phrase, "I'm laying down my religion," in a more abstract sort of sense. You might think to yourself, what's wrong with being religious? Why would that ever be something that we would want to lay down? And what does it mean for me to state that, to sing it, to proclaim it? To say it another way, what is religion? What does it mean to lay religion down? And why might we want to do just that? Or maybe why not? Let's take a look at this first question. What is religion? Go ahead, call out some responses.
Habits.
Yeah, she said it's habits. Beliefs? Yeah, it could definitely be beliefs. Yeah, absolutely. He said it could be rules. Yeah, of course. She said it could be interpretation. So perhaps religion is a shared set of beliefs that people hold. This might make it understandable why it seems a little difficult to specifically define. Maybe you religiously eat tacos on Taco Tuesday. Or maybe you religiously go to church, but we use the same word to define extremely different things. It seems like there could be a lot of ways that you could lay your religion down. But maybe the deeper question is, why? I want us to think about this question together. Why might we want to lay our religion down? Why not? Here at Edges, we try to gather in and engage in meaningful dialogue with the people around us by gathering around the tables in the room in groups of 3 to 5 folks. If you'll make sure to introduce yourselves and then discuss the question on the screen. If you're a talker like me, try to leave some space for the folks who might need to think a little bit more. If you'd rather not speak, that's all right too. Feel free to listen to the conversation. All right, let's give it a go. All right, so go ahead and finish your thought, and then we'll bring it back together. All right, so what did you hear? What kinds of things did you hear from the people around you?
Laying down the religion is putting it on the table. You're not giving it up, you're just putting it on the table so you can be free to talk to the Lord and get to know Him as an individual. And I think it's, we have different religions and different boundaries and different rules, and we're saying, let's just put that aside for the moment and get walk with God and get to know you as a friend. And you have to sort of give up your boundaries sometimes in order to be free and to have the openness to move forward.
Yeah, so she says that laying down our religion means that we put it on the table. Maybe it doesn't mean that we give it up, but it allows us to be freer to be able to think about and get to know God more. Sure.
Laying down religion could be, sometimes we get a little caught up in the routines and practices that are put forward by the church and things that we have to do. And so by laying this down, instead we can focus on the relationship.
Yeah, so he says that sometimes religion can be a way that we get caught up in the routine. So maybe we could lay that down so that we can focus on the relationship. Sure.
We talked a little bit about how laying religion down can help you really bring someone else to a relationship with God. Sunday morning in a big church setting might not be the right environment for someone to talk about a relationship with God. Maybe someone coffee, maybe going on a hike, and that doesn't really fit into religion, but that brings people to God.
And he said that maybe God doesn't always fit in sort of the box of organized religion, and so maybe laying that down can be a space where we can find a place to get to know God more. Sure. Yeah, she said it could be a form of surrender to God. Absolutely. Maybe one more?
For some, church provides church or religion provides structure to their life and gives them purpose. So putting it down could really put that person in a place of darkness, depending on how you take laying it down, interpret it. But if you put it away from yourself for a moment, that could really lead you to go down a path that you might not enjoy or that you feel lost in.
And so he said that as far as the, why not is concerned, for lots of folks, religion gives a purpose or a way to structure their life. I think that leads us really, really well into this next point. So I want to think a little bit about what purpose religion or the church serves in the world. For some of us, as you all may have said, religion serves as a steadfast anchor that firmly holds our lives. It serves as a framework with which to think about and discuss a huge and complex God. It can be a commonality across all sorts of different socioeconomic barriers, cultural bias, or other differences. So for some folks, religion can give a solid footing, a way to think about God, and a way to connect with different types of people. For others, religion may serve as more of a barrier to belief. Have you ever heard somebody say, I'm a spiritual person, but I'm not very religious? This sentiment often comes down to someone having been burned by the church or finding structured religion confining. Sometimes even hurtful things are done in the name of religion. So for another group of people, religion may seem like more of a structural bureaucracy or stir up old, unpleasant feelings that inhibit their way to belief. It's easy to see how this thought of laying down our religion might strike up a chord with all sorts of different folks. No matter which side of the coin you land on, it's clear that there are indeed two sides. For those that trust the structure of the church, we can sometimes get caught up in the rhythmic complacency of religion. For those that don't, we may be missing out on the community framework that the church provides. Either way, religion can sometimes create a barrier to knowing God more. In fact, United Pursuit's very next line is, I'm laying down, I want to know you more. Not only do the songwriters say that we should lay down our religion, but in fact call us to lay down all of ourselves to know God more. They don't call us to remove ourselves from the church, but instead to take a more measured look at all the things that cause us not to know God as fully. Do we want to know God more? Could we be willing to lay down any and all barriers, our whole selves, just to know God more? Is it possible that when we hold a specific expectation for how things will be, how we think that God is, or what we think God will do, we diminish the vastness, greatness, and capability of our unending God? I'll ask again. When we hold a specific expectation for how things will be, how we think that God is, or what we think God will do, is it possible we diminish the vastness, greatness, and capability of our unending God? In the next portion of the song, United Pursuit changes the tone using these words. Lord, I've been told to be ashamed. Lord, I've been told I don't measure up. I've been told I'm not good enough, but you're here with me. How many of us have been told that we don't measure up? That we should be ashamed of something? That we're not good enough for whatever life throws at us? When I was in school, I often felt this way. You see, I'm not the most studious or capable kid when it comes to the classroom. Sure, I can rattle off some Jeopardy facts and crush somebody in a game of Trivial Pursuit. But when it comes to the down and dirty hard work of studying, not procrastinating, and having the self-motivation to actually do the things, I'm downright awful. It wasn't until one day, my senior year of college, that I had one of the more frightening experiences in my academic career that things changed for me. I was sitting, being a bit of a class clown, in my math professor's classroom. I was making jokes, laughing along with the class, and doing my usual thing. Suddenly, in the middle of the class, the professor turned around from the blackboard, and yes, mathematicians do still use chalk, and said, "Preston, I'm going to need to see you after class." Panicked and sweating in my chair, I sat through the rest of class, diligently taking my notes and not making a peep. At the end of class, I went up to my professor, who immediately turned and left the room. I was dumbfounded. I followed him up the stairs into the office, where my professor promptly shut the door and said, "Will you just shut up? You would be one of the most successful people in the class if you would just work hard and pay attention." That moment has stuck with me because it made me realize how much I had been telling myself that I didn't measure up, that I wasn't good enough. I realized I'd been joking around so much because I had been telling myself that I wasn't par for the course, that my classmates deserved to be there and I didn't. I really felt like I was good enough for the class itself. And it isn't always others telling us these untruths. Instead, sometimes we put ourselves down. We lump our own selves into the category of unworth, not good enough, amidst the dust. Even so, Jesus reaches out and continues to find us amongst our mess. Jesus affirms to us that no matter what we've been told, heard, or thought, no amount of these untruths will ever separate us from God. To be perfectly honest, this is something that I still struggle with. Even though I know that Jesus continues to find me amongst my mess, I still need help from all sorts of loving people in my life to continue to cling to this truth. In Hebrews 12, in verses 1 and 2, the writer of the book of Hebrews says the following words. You can feel free to follow along. It's on page 692 of the Bibles at your table, or it'll be on the screen behind me. So then, let's also run the race that's laid out in front of us, since we have such a great cloud of witnesses surrounding us. Let's throw off any extra baggage and get rid of the sin that trips us up, and fix our eyes on Jesus, faith's pioneer and perfecter. He endured the cross, ignoring the shame, for the sake of the joy that was laid out in front of him, and sat down at the right side of God's throne. This passage encourages us to get rid of all of our baggage, whether it be our bias surrounding religion, whether it be our own mentality of telling ourselves that we aren't good enough, or whether it be any measure of sin that trips us up, and instead to fix our eyes on faith's perfecter, Jesus. Perhaps, like laying down our religion, couldn't this be something that we're called to? Why? Because of the simple gospel. Because of the good news. The truth that Jesus endured the cross and rose on Easter morning for the sake of the joy that was laid out in front of him. The truth that God has been washing away our shame, our religious baggage, our emotional baggage, our personal baggage, our mess, since the very first day. The truth that we don't stand alone, but stand with a whole cloud of witnesses around us. The truth that when we lay down all of these things and focus on knowing God more, we too are participants in the simple gospel. In essence, we lay down all of our mess so that Jesus can bring to light the simple, good news. When we rejoice in the Lord, rejoice in the truths that the Hebrews passage speaks of, we can have confidence that God is enough, that we are enough, and that love will prevail. No amount of untruths, limiting our perspective, or religion that we've built for ourselves can come close to the vast, overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Amen. So while our lead worshipers come to share the song Simple Gospel with us, I'd like to invite us to use this time for a bit of reflection, to acknowledge what's ours to lay down, or what might be in your simple gospel to pick up. To that end, you're invited to write your list, whatever you personally need to lay down. Beliefs, fears, stereotypes, anything that's become an empty religion for you. anything that's actually in the way of acknowledging God. Then at any point over the next song or two, offer your baggage here, in the same bowl that we use to commune to God every week, as a visible reminder of the simple good news that Jesus continues to wash all of our baggage away, from our first day to our last.